Dear colleagues and friends, great to be with you here. This is to give you the scientific update on why action on climate change requires also investments in a massive scale in nature positive, which includes multiple benefits for biodiversity, climate stability, and the planetary resilience. We are today in the midst of the Anthropocene, a geological epoch where we are now the dominating force of change on the entire planet. We know that this is playing out today in 4 integrated crises. We're all talking about the climate crisis. We're in the tail end, hopefully, of a COVID-19 crisis, a pandemic that originates from unsustainable exploitation of natural habitats with a zoonosis that spills over from wildlife via domestic animals to humans. We have the Ukraine geopolitical instability in the world, but we're also having the ecological crisis. And this is a crisis today of massive scale. We're in the 6th mass extinction of species. The Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services concludes the drama. We are at risk of losing 1 million of 8 million known species. 70% of the populations of animals and species around the world have been lost just in 1 generation since 1970. We are undermining the functions in the Earth system that can provide good lives, well-being, and development for humanity. The data is all out there in terms of, the 41% loss of insects just over the past few decades, 22% of vertebrate species, and there's so much science that shows the red curves of decline in the populations and in the living species that builds up all the ecosystems in the world. And the pace is unprecedented. We are at 100 to 1,000 times faster in loss of species in the world than the natural background rate. I mean, you've all heard of when the dinosaurs disappeared on planet Earth due to an asteroid collision with planet Earth. We are, for amphibians, for example, losing species over 100 times faster than that Cretaceous max extinction event 66 million years ago. So big things are happening, and big things are happening on a planet that we all depend on in its basic stability. This is showing the last 12,000 years of stability on Earth, which is the Holocene, a plus minus 0.5 degrees Celsius deviation from the pre-industrial average temperature, all thanks to the way nature has been building and buffering the capacity to avoid that the planet deviates away from stable conditions. The pathway forward is known. This is the IPCC pathway for a safe landing at 1.5. We need to phase out fossil fuels. You see it in the dark gray line here, to a net zero world economy by 2050. But my key message is this: all models that takes us to a safe landing assume that nature will continue to be this healthy provider of carbon sinks and ecosystem services for humanity. These are the dark green line and light green line you see below the zero line, to be able to provide the buffering capacity for the future. We showed quite recently that if it hadn't been for nature on land, we would have already have crashed through 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming, a place we haven't been in for the past 3 million years. So this is really serious. We need a planetary boundary framework to guide humanity's development. In 2015, we concluded that 4 of the 9 boundaries are outside of the safe space, biodiversity being one of them, but also climate, but also on overloading of nitrogen and phosphorus, and land system expansion. We're cutting down too much of intact forest systems on planet Earth. So we're undermining the resilience of the planet exactly when we need a healthy planet more than ever. The latest update we're working on right now shows, unfortunately, that we're in the red also on fresh water and chemical pollution. So unfortunately, we haven't turned things around yet. But nature-based solutions can be the turning point. And it's a turning point that has to be an additionality. It has to be done in terms of what is now developing into the nature positive agenda of halting loss of nature from, we suggest scientifically, a reference point of 2020 onwards. We will continue losing some nature, but we have to reach a net positive point by 2030, which can be done with restoration and regenerative investments across all sectors, from forestry, agriculture to conservation of nature, to restore all systems by 2050. So that's our charge, but it cannot be offset against our inability of landing safely on a fossil fuel free energy system. It has to be done additional. So what you see to the left here is this suggestion of having science-based targets for climate, net zero by 2050, science-based target for nature, net zero loss from 2020 onwards, and this can give us the integrated pathways to a safe landing by mid-century, where we can keep the Earth system within a stable condition. Because it's come to this. We are risking the planet. The Earth system is now subject to a larger stress than we've ever experienced before. And unfortunately, the only way to really have a safe landing is that we now can buffer the radiative forcing caused by global warming with healthy nature to help us in a future within a safe operating space on Earth. And this is the task now, and that is why nature-based solutions is so important as an equal investment on the climate transition. So with that, good luck in your endeavors on that transition. Thank you very much.